I'll try to make it short. In my high school, there were 6 kids who always used to bully me. Once we went to a camping in a forest. They dragged me into a remote location and beat me with whatever they got. I passed out soon. When I woke up, I was in an operation theater and unable to move. To be honest, I don't know whether the operation theater event was real or a dream. After the surgery, I was in coma for 3 weeks. I broke 9 bones, lost 2 toes and an eye. Took me months to get out of hospital and I also failed that grade. It took me years to forget that event. The worst part is that no action was taken against those kids as their parents were high-level officers in Air Force. Edit. Thanks guys for all your support. You have no idea how much this means to me. I was a lonely kid with no one to support. But all your support means a lot to me than you can imagine. Also, thanks for the gold. I was 3 years old and went to this lady's house for swimming lessons. What my parents didn't know was that the lady hated boys. One day she threw me in the pool and left me to die. I sank to the bottom. I was under for several minutes. Somehow a teenager saw this, jumped the fence and rescued me. The ambulance came and I was in ICU for a week. My parents never found out who the teenager was. The lady wasn't arrested. The cops told my parents that it would cost them money to take her to court. See edit below. A lawyer read an article in the newspaper and decided to go after the lady, pro bono. She had several businesses involving kids. He was able to shut her down. She ended up as a waitress and eventually got cancer and died. As a lovely parting gift, growing up I sometimes felt like I was drowning when taking a shower or in water. I've overcame this and eventually got a scuba license and still enjoy swimming. Edit. Wow. This is blowing up. THXS for all the kind words. So, I called my mom and asked her about it. Here is what happened. So, my mom drove us to the swimming lessons. The lady was recommended and highly thought of. My mom wanted to observe, but the lady said no. So, mom was in the front, in the car, waiting for the lesson to end. The lady had 2 teenage helpers. So, when I was tossed in, one of the teenagers saved me. Mom doesn't really know if it was them or someone else, but it makes sense it was one of them. The lady did go to the hospital, where she was questioned. The reason the cops didn't do anything was that my parents had to file a complaint. They consulted a lawyer, but it would be too costly to prosecute. Plus, she was actively dying of cancer. Mom wanted her shut down. It was a lawyer neighbor that heard about it and shut her down. Pro bono. This fills in a lot of holes for me. I was working at Boston Market at the time. A customer came in and we served him like usual. Suddenly we hear him start yelling off the top of his lungs, "I'm going to kill all of you." We all step out of the kitchen to see what the heck is going on. This man was upset because we gave him a low serving of peas. Our manager kicks him out and he's now yelling, "I'm going to come back and kill all of you." Later that night it's just me and a different manager closing. We lock the doors and start heading towards our cars. Sure enough, guess who's standing next to my car? The guy points both his knives at me and starts chasing me. I run towards my manager, but his face is as pale as a ghost and he's all frozen up. I decide that if I'm going to die that night, I'm dying under my own hands and run straight into traffic. At this point I'm standing in the middle of the road. The guy is waiting for his shot to run, but then casually walks away. I call the cops. They come, they catch the dude, and they release him because he didn't actually hurt me. I quit my job the next week and never attended court with him. TL. Dr. Angry Man was angry he didn't get enough food and tried to kill me and was let off with a warning. I had just bought a full sheet of acid. This was 20 years ago. Sorry FBI. And I went over to where my friend was living with a bunch of roommates to share the wealth. I knew most of the people he lived with, but there was one guy staying there who I hadn't met before. I basically handed out however many doses people were tough enough to take at once, including 3 or 4 hits to the new guy. We came to find out pretty quickly that new guy had never taken LSD before. Okay, no problem. He's at home. He's surrounded by people he knows, except me. He can just chill and have a good time. We wanted to watch a movie, so we landed on the Brady Bunch movie, which is trippy F, BTW. Everything's going good. We all start peeking, and we are laughing and having a good time. And then, on the movie, the little girl Cindy is getting advice from her dad and says, "But I don't want to be a snitch." New guy stands up and draws, "Is that what you think? You think I may fucking snitch?" We all try to calm him down, explain to him that it's a line from the movie. We even rewind the movie so he can watch that part again, but nothing is working. He's tripping too hard to reason with, and he's convinced that we are accusing him of being a snitch. Then he starts pacing back and forth, muttering, "This is the kind of shit that makes motherfuckers kill. This is the kind of shit that makes motherfuckers kill." Over and over. Great. He zeroed in on me, I'm sure because he didn't know me, and he's still pacing back and forth and muttering, but now he's giving me a death glare while he does it. I'm getting pretty uncomfortable, obviously, and I'm also peaking from like 10 hits of acid, so my ability to cope with the situation is pretty low. I stand up because, well, there's a guy I don't know pacing around behind me muttering about killing people, and I don't want my back to this dude. This would be a really intense situation, even if I wasn't tripping balls, but the acid certainly doesn't help. Suddenly he pulls out a huge hunting knife, lunges at me, and tries to stab me. I dodged him, then he made another try, but by that time his friends had jumped up and were holding him back. He's struggling to break free and screaming, "You think I may fucking snitch? I'll fucking kill you." And I took the opportunity to bop right on out the door. I was about half a mile from my house, but it took me about 2 hours to find it because I was tripping so hard and I kept getting lost in my own neighborhood. Addendum. He was, in fact, a snitch, and the whole house got raided a few weeks later. A bunch of the guys who lived there got arrested for drugs, although my friend had moved out by that point, so luckily he wasn't one of them. TLDR, guy taking acid for the first time tried to stab me with a hunting knife because he thought Cindy from the Brady Bunch was accusing him of being a snitch. It turned out he was, in fact, a snitch. Not me, but my mother. My mother was 7 to 8 months pregnant with her first child when one day her mother-in-law gave her a pudding mixed with poison. Soon after, it started taking effect and naturally affected the baby too. She was in labor and begged her in-laws and husband, my dad, to take her to the hospital, but they just refused to. She spent the whole night in pain, and in the morning around 4 AM, they took her to the hospital. The doctor said they couldn't explain how she managed. She survived as her blood was contaminated and the fetus had died in her womb at night. My dad took the fetus away before anyone could see him. I don't think it was really attempted malicious murder, just ignorance murder. I was in the air for what I found out months later was a gallbladder attack. At the time I was in so much pain I couldn't think or see straight. I could barely sit up. I was sweating. It was bad. Doctor tells me I'm on drugs. I've never done drugs in my life. I don't even drink. I'd even quit smoking. He ignores me and tells me to stop pretending. He gives me Toradol. I'm very allergic to Toradol. I broke out in a rash from head to toe and my whole body felt like it was on fire. I told the doctor. He told me I'd done it to myself from being so dramatic and he's discharging me. He leaves and I start getting super lightheaded and start shivering uncontrollably. I kept pressing my call light and I was crying and saying help, but no one was coming. A nurse walked out of a room next to me and peered in and saw me and fucking ran, "We need help in room 7. Within seconds my nurse was there with a big cart. I'm laying down at this point. I remember her yelling at me to answer and stay awake, but I couldn't. I remember the blood pressure cuff going off and looking at the numbers and they were low and pulse was dropping too. I was just really warm and sleepy and didn't care about anything anymore. She kept telling me not to go to sleep, but it's the only thing I wanted to do in the whole world. I woke up about 7 hours later still covered in a rash and kind of confused, but otherwise okay. Alive, at least. Still hate doctors to this day. My ex was actively poisoning me to get the money my mom left me after she died. Edit. Sorry I screwed up. I accidentally replied to myself with a more detailed account instead of just putting an edit into my original post. So if you scroll down through the comments to my post then you'll find a more detailed account of my story. Sorry y'all, my only excess is that I'm currently in the hospital for an actual cons flare and I'm a little out of it, lack of sleep and painkillers. Y'all are an awesome bunch of people. Thank you all for your responses. Here, hopefully I figured this out. Edit. I invited my, at the time, estranged dad and stepmom to come visit me at my home after my mom died. Then I suddenly, over the course of 4 weeks, had to go to the hospital with symptoms that mimicked the Crohn's I suffer thug, but without present Crohn's activity, nausea, vomiting, severe weight loss, 150 pounds to 97 pounds, fatigue, pneumonia, high fever. My dad and stepmom drove a 4-hour round trip to visit me every day while I was in the hospital. They also took me to all my doctor's appointments and helped pay for my bills because I was out of work. During all this time my ex came up with excuse after excuse as to why she couldn't be bothered to visit me in the hospital, take me to doctor's appointments, lift a finger to clean the house, or even sleep in the same bed with me at night. Her main excuse for not going out was that she had agoraphobia, which was bullshit, because while I was in the hospital she would drive her and her kid to her brother/lovers, yes, incest, found out it was actually her and her brother's kid I was taking care of, house every day so the kid could play with his cousin/brother and she could be with her lover. Her main excuse for not cleaning the house was because she had COPD, but she smoked a pack of cigarettes and drank 100 ounces of Dr. Pepper a day. She would also only bathe once a week. She most certainly was not like this when we first met, and for the 3 out of 4 years we lived together. It was my stepmom that came to the conclusion that my ex was actively poisoning me. She made my dad step in and convince me that my ex was poisoning me and that I needed to move out and away from her and her totally fucked up family. I got away from my ex and my stepmom and dad took me into their home and family. Edit 2. I stupidly gave my ex full access to my checking and savings accounts to pay for our household bills. I blindly trusted her to handle our finances while I was working. Come to find out, after my mom died my ex started to steal money from my account and give it to her brother/lover. And that's how they planned to steal my mom's inheritance, buy some land, put mobile homes on the land, and kill me and bury my body on that land. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more daily 6 PM Reddit uploads.